Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, we're going to be going over functions. So you can think of a function as a set of rules for something to do whenever you call it. So, basically whenever you start talking in a high voice to your dog, he's going to start wagging his tail, he might start panting, he might start jumping on you, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So you can think of this function as praise dog, and then within that function, all of these different actions will take place. So the syntax for a function comes as follows. We say def or define, and then we give our function name. So in this case, I'm going to say praise dog. And it's the same ruling for variable names such as function names as well. And we give these parentheses denoting that it's a function. And now I'm going to say colon, and everything indented below this will be within this function. So now I'm going to say print dog starts wagging tail, print dog starts panting, and I'm also going to print that the dog starts jumping on you. Okay, so we have this function here, and it has three calls to three different print functions. So here, to call our praise dog function, or to basically start talking in a high voice, what we do is we give our same function name, and we use these parentheses. So now, when we run our script, we get dog starts wagging tail, dog starts panting, and dog starts jumping on you. Okay, another property in functions is that we can pass in different attributes to them, and these are called parameters. So to pass a parameter, you see here in our parentheses when we said that we want to praise our dog, and then we put parentheses here to make it an actual function. So we can start passing in parameters here. So I'm gonna pass in here name. Now when we pass in our name here, as you can see, we got a warning here during our call. It says no value for argument name in function call. That's because we added a argument here name, but we didn't give it a name. So now let's give it a name, and we're gonna say our name is Rex. So now, instead of just saying dog here all the time, I'm gonna make these three F strings, and now I'm gonna change dog to name. So now when we call our function here, we're calling it with the name of Rex. So Rex gets passed in here as a variable, and we can use this variable all within this function. So now when we run this, we get Rex starts wagging tail, Rex starts panting, and Rex starts jumping on you. Functions can also have different returns, and you can return any type of data type that you like, as we've mentioned before. So in other languages, we have to actually say the return type in the declaration of the variable. So we're going to say int and then praise dog, and then whatnot, do our function here, and then we can return an integer here like 5. But in Python, we can just return any data type without having to declare another thing. All we do is just say def. So return something, we can just say return and then whatever. So right now our return is just void. And when we run this, we get nothing different. But what this return does is we can set a variable to our function call here. So I'm going to say call equals that, our praise dog with passing the name of Rex. And now when I print call, as you can see, we get none. And that's because this return, again, is returning nothing or null or none in Python. So now let's say we want to return our name that we were passed in. So now we can say just return name, and now when we run this, as you can see, we get Rex printed here. And just so we know what we're looking at, I'm going to say here call return, and we're going to say call. And as you can see, call return is Rex. Okay, so now let's pass something a little bit more complicated. I'm going to go with the example before that we had in a previous video with the test driving Teslas. So to test drive a Tesla, you have to be at least 21 years old. So I'm going to set here a variable here called age. I'm going to set this equal to 20. I'm gonna set a name equal to VJ again. And now here I'm gonna make a function. I'm gonna call this function check age. And what do we want to check? We want to check the age. So we're gonna have to pass in some age, right? So now that we're passing in our age, we want to see if the age is greater than or equal to 21. If it is, we want to return true. This means that we are allowed to test drive the Tesla. However, if we don't get inside of this block right here because our age is not greater than or equal to 21, we're going to return false. So now, if I call this function check age and I pass in my age, and let me actually print this so we can see it better. Now when I run this, we get false because my age is only 20. But if I change my age here to 21, we get true. So I'm going to set my age back down to 20. And I'm also declare another global variable here called VIP. And this was our VIP list that we had before of people that are in queue for the test drives. So our first person is going to be me, VJ, and we're going to give another name, Sarah again. We're going to give Bob, Roy, and Jessica, or Jess. Okay, so now that we've checked our age, we also want to check name, because we want to check if the name is in the VIP list, right? So let's give a name here. And I'm actually going to move this VIP list into this function here. So like I said before, this is now a local variable from a global variable. The difference between them two is that this name variable here is not within a function. So we can use it down here, such as the age. We can use it outside of the scope, and we can also use it inside of functions. So to show you this, I'm going to say print name. And now when we call this function here, and we need to make sure that we pass in a name here, I'm just going to say anything. And when we run this, we get the name here. Oh, and as you can see, we have conflicting variable types. So when you have a global and a local variable, it's going to override and take the local variable instead. So I'm gonna change this real quick to my name. And now when I print my name instead, we get VJ. However, if I tried to get this VIP list from outside of that function and I wanted to print VIP, well, we can't do this because name VIP is not defined because it's only declared as a local variable here. So only check name even knows about it. Okay, back to checking the name. Let's set this back to name, and I want to check again. So remember our if statement for checking if a string is within a list. So we can say if name, and name is not this name. This is the name that we're getting in, being passed in from the check name variable. So we can say if name in VIP, then we're going to return true. And if it's not passed in, then we can return false. I'm not putting this inside of an else block here because we don't really need to. Because as you can see, if we never even enter in this block here, then we were just going to return false anyway. But if we do enter the block, this return value gets executed and the return below it, or any code below it, does not get executed. Because once we use this keyword return, it immediately comes out of the function and back to where it was called at. But for this sake, I'm just going to leave it as else here. So now when we say print and then the name, we're going to get false, false. This is because my age is 20, but I'm going to set my age here to 21. And as you can see, our age is okay. However, our name is not because it's not on the list. But if I say my name is Sarah and run this, we get true. So now let's do an if statement here. Let's say if, and then we want to call this function, check age with our age, and I want to see if this is going to be equal to true. Now remember, before we actually don't need to set this is equal to true. If we just do if check age like that, that means is this value true, and that's what we're returning right here. So if check age, and we also want to check the name with the name that we're given, and see if that is true, then we can print your test car is ready. And if it's not, so if either one of these are false because we have this and statement, then we can print you are not qualified. And I'm going to move our age and name down here. It'll still be in the global scope because it's not within a function. However, I just want to get it lower so we can see it easier. And let me move this. And when we run this now, we get your test car is ready because both my age and my name are in the check name. So now let's just say that our age is 20, but my name is still in the VIP list. So now when I run this, it says you are not qualified. But now let me say that I am old enough, but my name is not in the list. So we'll say our name here is Bob Jr. And if I run this, it still says we are not qualified. Now let's use an else if statement to actually get a more detailed look at what we're doing here. So I'm going to say elif, and we're going to say if the check age is not true, then we're going to print you are not old enough. I'm also going to set another else if, and I'm going to say if not in the VIP list, then we're going to print you are not on the list. And if both of those are not true, we'll print again you are not on the VIP list. So obviously you can see this is a little redundant here because we're printing if the name is not on the VIP list, and then we're also saying if it's not on the VIP list and our age is not qualified. So now when we run this, remember our name now is Bob Jr., which is not on the VIP list, and our age is 21, which is good enough. We get, and we get an error saying that greater than or equal to is not supported between instances of string and int, and this is in our check age function. So we're passing an age here and seeing if age is greater than or equal to 21, and it's saying age is a string. Well, as you can see right here, we pass in check name with the name. This needs to be check name, not check age. And now when we run this, we get you are not on the list. So this is because our age was okay. So when we run through this, we check age and check name. Both of those need to be true for it to enter this block. However, remember our check name was not. So now what we need to do is go down to this next statement and we need to check our age. Now our age is okay, so we're not going to enter in this block. Now the next thing we're going to do is check the name. The name is not in the VIP list, so we're going to enter in this block, and since this is an else if and not just an if statement, we're not going to get to this else statement right here. So let's change our name to somebody else that's in the VIP list. Let's change our name to Bob, and when we run this, it says our test car is ready. Now let's say Bob is not old enough. He's 20 years old. It says you are not old enough. And if Bob is not old enough and he's not on the VIP list, we get, again, you are not old enough. Now, why doesn't it say you are not on the VIP list? Because his name and his age both aren't qualified. Well, this is because when we get to this statement right here, checking his age, this statement is true because we're saying if not true, his age, then we're going to print not old enough. And these if-else statements, if you've seen in the previous video, once they are considered true, it will not go through the rest of them. So since this was true, it doesn't check the name and it doesn't go to this else statement. So that's why we're not getting you are not on the VIP list. And that's really all there is for the basic functionality of functions. In our next video, we're going to be going over input from the user.